Okay, so this is actually the second video in this series. So if you hadn't had it, we already did a warm up. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the warm up, that might be helpful before we start here. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to walk you guys through a sun salutation. A sun salutation is a series of 12 movements. They're not usually always in a gentle class, but they would be in a basic class. So I'll show you some modifications along the way. Then we're going to demonstrate a couple of our standing balance poses and a couple of our strength building poses. So to start with, they're going to come to the top of their mat and take a deep breath in, full breath out. That was mostly for me because I'm doing a lot of talking. All right, inhale, reach up overhead, and then they're going to exhale to a forward fold. Now you can bend your knees here. You do not need to fold very deeply. In fact, come up to a halfway lift. I oftentimes skip the fold for myself and I go right to this halfway up. They're going to step back into a tabletop position. Now, a lot of times people will step back into down dog. Go ahead and demonstrate downward dog. But I like to have people step back into this tabletop position and come down to the knees. Go ahead. Because when I come down to the knees, then I can give you the option of going back into a high child's pose. Go ahead and go back. Or if they love down dog, they can come back up to down dog. From here, they're going to come forward into their favorite plank pose. For some people, that's a full plank with the knees off the ground. For other people, it's a modified plank with the knees on the ground. And for others, it's a modified plank with the forearms on the ground. So if you have any wrist issues, you can always lower right down to the forearms. From here, they're going to come all the way down to the mat and press up into what we call cobra, a tiny back bend, just lifting the chest. Then we're going to go back up over the knees to that high child's pose. Again, this high child's pose is always an alternative to downward dog. Then they can either come to the top of their mat or they can go up into down dog and then walk to the top of the mat. When you get up there, they're going to come up halfway. And again, sometimes I like to skip the forward fold here, but I know a lot of people like it. Let's go ahead and forward fold if you do, and then come all the way up to standing. Arms up overhead, and then they'll bring the hands back to the heart and then down to their sides. So sometimes we do a few of those, 2 or 3 of those to get warmed up. Since these guys are already warmed up, we're going to step right into our warrior poses. So from here, they're going to move into what we call warrior 2. They're going to turn this direction on their mat, and they're going to take a wide step out. They're going to turn their left toes towards the front of the mat. I'm not sure how well you guys can see those. And then they're going to turn their back toes slightly in and lower down so they get a little bend in that front knee, and then take their arms out to the sides. That's a warrior 2 pose. From here, we like to do a little warm up with warrior 2. So they're going to straighten the front leg and take the arms up overhead and then lower back down. And they're going to keep doing that at their own pace. So they can inhale on the way up, just like we taught you guys in the first video, to move in sync with your breath. Inhale up, exhale down. And you can come down as low or as shallow as you like. You're still going to be building strength in the legs here. One more warrior 2, and then we'll often reach back just to open up the front of the body. This is a reverse warrior. And then we'll come forward and rest that left elbow on the knee to take a little break in side angle. Now, no one's ever going to call side angle a break, but we'll do it for today. Come back to warrior 2 and pause. Sometimes we'll pause in these warriors, but if you ever feel like that's a lot, you just straighten that leg and you come up, take a little break, come back down. Now I'm going to have them turn their toes in and move to warrior 2 on the other side so that they're a little bit more balanced. So they're going to turn their right toes out. They're going to come down a little bit here, straighten the back leg, arms out. And we'll do that same flow on the other side. Inhale, coming up, and exhale, lower down. And again, the lower down, go ahead and do that 2 more times. The lowering down is up to you. The level of intensity in all of these poses is always up to you. If you're just starting out, take it easy. If you've been doing this for a while, you might want to take it up a notch and just challenge yourself a bit. One more. And then just to make it balance, I'm going to have them tip back so you can see that reverse warrior from the back side, and then a side angle, elbow to the knee, reaching over. Good. Come back to the center. We're going to turn the toes towards each other just a little bit here. They're just going to stand in a wide-legged stance. Actually, none of you guys have your blocks. Can you grab your blocks? They can all grab their blocks. They're going to put the blocks in front of them. So when you're standing with the legs wide apart, you can come down to the block. Go ahead and put the block on the tall side for the first one. And that way they can lift up a little bit. You don't have to be in a forward fold. And this goes for the forward fold that we started with in our sun salutation also. Always recommend that you have a block handy, a water bottle, small animal, something that you can use for a little bit of support. So they can fold or they can come up. And then usually we come up halfway so that we get the back nice and flat. And then you bring one hand to the center, take the other hand up for a twist. And again, we're going to move in sync with our breath. Coming down, inhale, reach up. You're always welcome to bend your knees in any of these positions as you get warmed up. One more on each side. And they're inhaling as they lift, exhaling as they lower because they're used to practicing like that. Then you can go ahead and heel toe your feet in closer and come back up to standing. So I'm going to have these guys turn and face the front of the mat again. I want to show you one more warrior pose. So they're going to step back into a crescent lunge or a warrior one, and we'll show you the difference. So go ahead and step back, and you see they wiggle around a little bit and get comfortable. You want to make sure that you feel steady. When we're talking about a crescent pose, as you can kind of see, they all went into, their heels are lifted a little bit back here. Not everybody has that kind of balance. So you can drop this back heel to the floor. Now we call it a warrior one. They're going to take their arms up overhead. Now we can still do that same up and down flow, or they can just hold that pose depending on whether we're looking to build a little bit of movement or whether we're looking to build a little strength. Go ahead and step back up to the top. Take a deep breath in. Full breath out. Again, we're always wanting to breathe in and out through the nose as much as possible. So now we're going to demonstrate a couple of balance poses, and I want to show you all the variations for probably the most common balance pose you've heard of and that you'll see is a tree pose. Basically, I like to call that standing on one leg. So what they're first going to do is they're going to shift all the weight into their left foot, and they're going to bring their right heel to the left ankle. Now, if you were to bring your right heel to your left ankle and squeeze them together, you're going to feel strengthening happen all the way up the inside and outside of the legs to the hips. That's all you ever need to do. That's a good balance pose. If you would like, you can take your arms to the center, hands to the center, or up overhead if you want a little extra challenge. Now, to take that up a notch, you could bring your foot to your calf or to a little higher than your knee. You want to try not to press on your knee. But another option on the knee, is Sue will demonstrate, is taking the foot in front of the knee. Oh, you don't want to do it today? There we go. Okay, good. And then we'll try the other side. So on the other, is it on this side that you do it? Yeah. So on the other side, Sue in the middle here is going to tell you, she'll take the heel in front of the knee. So that way you never have to worry about having some pressure on that standing leg, but also it makes it a little bit easier for her to open up her knee to the side. And Joanna, you can see, has got an ankle brace on her foot. So she's probably not going to squeeze quite as hard yet, but you can still do these kinds of things. Even if you're rehabilitating something, you just have to take it easy. From tree pose, I usually have people move into another fancy title, again, standing on one leg pose. So we might come into chair pose. Inhale your arms up overhead and then sink down into chair. They're going to bend their knees a little bit, and you can bend them just a little, you can bend them a lot. For me, it depends on how my knee feels that day. Sometimes this knee tends to give out, so I'll go a little bit shallower, or I'll squeeze my knees together. Some people like to have their knees hips width apart, so it's a little bit more of a squat. That's okay too. From chair pose, shifting all the weight into the left foot, they can come up onto their right toes for a balance pose, or they could take that right foot behind them if they're feeling fancy. They're kind of fancy today. Other side. So we usually bring you back to neutral, just like we did in the first video. We always want to come back to a neutral spot between these things and really just kind of wiggle it out. Maybe take another breath and then shift to the other side. One of the things that's most helpful in the balance poses is to always have a focal point and to use the same focal point as often as possible, because it's one less thing your brain has to figure out. So you keep your eyes in one place, you come into your balance pose, and then you breathe in and out through your nose. Good, thanks. I think that's it. I think chair pose. In our last video, we did a little warm up seated, and then we moved right into Shavasana. So if you haven't watched that first one, when we do this kind of flow and when we build this kind of strength, your body will remember it and integrate it more naturally if you rest afterwards, and rest like 8 minutes. It takes about 8 minutes to get to your nervous system. And what we basically do is we just lay down and we breathe in and out through the nose. And we start by breathing in 5.5 seconds and out for 5.5 seconds. And if you saw me talk a little bit before these videos, you will have heard this a bunch of times, but when you breathe in and out 5.5 seconds, it averages out to about 5.5 breaths per minute. And that is the optimal breathing pattern for your body to function, to heal, to strengthen. And that's what this practice is for. So thank you for joining us. Thanks, you guys.